Okay viewer, thank you for watching. Hope you're having an awesome day and welcome to Turndog Talks 2. I am delighted to be talking today with Greg Smuk, a guy who I've known for quite a long time. He is co-founder of Splitpixel, a web design company, although going into loads of other things in the sort of coming months in Huddersfield. So I've known Greg for a long time, so let's kick things off. Greg, explain who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, I'm Greg. I've also got another director at Splitpixel called Charlie. Basically, we started about 4 years ago. Actually, not just over 4 years ago. It was my birthday about 2 weeks ago, which we haven't celebrated yet because we don't have time. But we started 4 years ago. We gradually sort of started off trying to get work as quickly as possible, because we started, when the recession started, pretty much the same, I think it was pretty much the same day. It was 15th of September 2008, I think.
You lined it up pretty nicely, didn't you? I seem to remember.
Yeah, and we didn't have any, we literally had 0 customers. We sat down in the office next door actually, which is smaller, and we just sat down and looked at each other and actually said, so what are we going to do today then? And we had a bit of a panic. And we just got ourselves out there, got our name out, like yourself. Just get your name out there as much as you can. And the work started coming. And we just gradually since then, we just made sure that we keep the relationship with our customers as good as we can. And it generally just seems to pay off through recommendations more than anything. And referrals, they just seem to come in if you do a good job, which we always try our best. We seem to get the referrals, and then the work comes in naturally, and that's how we've progressed. Really.
It's web design that you specialise in.
Yeah.
Right. But you're looking to expand in a few other ways and have a few more services.
Yeah. I mean, 100% we're fantastic at web design, but we're certainly looking. We're not experts at other particular areas. We don't like to say we're experts, but we're getting there with certain other aspects, particularly SEO. I mean, we understand everything about SEO, but we're not experts on how to best implement it in terms of things like keywords and stuff like that. But in terms of implementing it on the website, obviously, because we solely do websites, we can implement it. But it's the marketing aspect of it that we're not marketeers. We would like to obviously become digital marketeers, so we would then go into things like doing a lot more email marketing campaigns and reporting on that, doing a lot more SEO ourselves in-house, doing helping out with social media and things like that, and strategies for that. But at the moment we're not doing that, but we are a small team. There is only 4 of us, but we're looking to sort of expand in the next year or 2.
And I always think a company is good if they have a coaster with a logo on, which Splitpixel do. So that for me says everything. Yeah. That's all you need to know. So let's go on into mistakes, because for those who might not know, this interview is based around the mistakes that Greg has made in business, but then how you overcame them. So I want you to think back to 4 years ago when you first started out on this venture.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and speak to 22-year-old you, is that right? 23?
No, 24.
24? If you could speak to 24-year-old you, what would you do differently?
Not an awful lot, really. Surprisingly, I suppose you have to make mistakes to learn from them anyway, and it's more looking at. I generally look at things on looking at how people do things wrong, which is what we're talking about today. How you do things wrong and then you learn from them. I generally then put them to the back of my mind and move on from them, because I just naturally do it right the next time. But I suppose there's 1 or 2 things. I wouldn't say that they're particularly massive, but we kind of gauge how our type of customer sort of changes quite a bit, and like sometimes you get the alarm bells ringing with customers that will come to you. They want XYZ, for example, but they'll try and sell it to you when you're really yours. Well, I'm supposed to be trying to sell to them, and they're selling themselves to you. And you know, things like, you can put your logo on the bottom of our website. You know, I'll help you do this, I'll help you do that, and it gets into all this sort of favours. And generally, they kind of try and take you for a bit of a ride sometimes. And because we were quite young as well as a company, we were quite naive in how they were approaching us, and because we're quite friendly people as well, we just sort of let it flow, and we sort of just did as they told us. This is specific.
Did you find yourself doing it sort of a few contra deals then, sort of?
Yeah, doing a lot of things. Yeah, or doing a lot of things for pretty much 0 pence, which obviously, you know, that's just the way it was to start off with. And I suppose as well, we weren't very clued up on things like payment terms and stuff like that. You know, we were quite loose on it, and a bit too loose on it, that we'd just let a customer pay whenever for anything, and generally they then didn't pay.
So maybe go back and tighten up some of the terms and conditions.
Well, we still don't have terms and conditions now, really, but it's just to do with invoicing and not doing the work until they've at least committed a payment towards what you're going to do, because the intent's there then, that they're paying in advance. Therefore, you get to the end of the work, then they have to pay for it for them to have the work. The problem that we were doing back then was that literally we just start the work, just do the work, send them an invoice when it was finished, and then, you know, try and get it 30 days after. Ended up being 90 days usually, closer to 90 days. That's generally what happens. So yeah, that was where we had to sort of tighten up what we were doing, and we kind of learned from our mistakes there, and we gradually got a little bit tighter on it. But we don't particularly have terms and conditions in place, because emails are sort of technically legally binding anyway when someone agrees to something. So it's just getting that initial payment off them to start off with, and then don't start until they've made their commitment to you.
Alright, so let's move on to that big mistake that this video is about. So tell us about it. What was the initial mistake? What happened?
We got introduced, I think this was like our 3rd or 4th client that we got. And I was introduced via one of my friends who actually worked for him, and said, why don't you come down? I don't want to go into exactly what the business was, but they said, why don't you come down? I had a chat with him. He just warned me that he was a bit tight with his money, and that's all my friend told me. He just said, you know, grasp it, it's a great opportunity to get loads of business out of him, so, you know, he's got a good business, so, you know, stick with him. So I took his advice. It turned out that this is where I was talking earlier about this sort of him selling to us. He ended up pretty much sort of psychologically taking over us, in that we would just do something for him and then he would pay for it at a later date. But then what happened was that the only time he ever paid an outstanding invoice was when he wanted something else. So if he came back for something else, we go, well, can you pay? Think, oh yeah, okay, there you go. But it wasn't until we finished the work, so we were always behind. So there was, at some point, there was going to be an issue where he doesn't want any work anymore from us. Is he going to pay it? Well, he didn't. The problem was, it was the biggest invoice of the lot. You know, it was for print. You know, so it was like, we didn't really know what to do. And I suppose we could have gone into sort of trying to chase him. We did call a few debt collection people up, but to be honest, he wasn't even using his right name, which was the main problem. So I mean, we couldn't really do much about it.
How long was this relationship going on?
Was it a client for about a year?
For about a year.
Yeah.
How many jobs were out of it?
We did about 3 websites for him in that time, but we just carried on working for him because obviously we wanted the money to come in because we were at such an early stage, and we should have caught on that even some of his businesses weren't particularly legit. I mean, he ended up in court a few times. I don't know what happened after that, but obviously because he was using the wrong name, he was getting away with stuff, and he'd drain one business and then move on to the other. But I suppose the main thing we should have learned from that is that we should have at least done a credit check, and we do that on every company now. We have a good look at the credit check, just to A, make sure that they exist, and then B, just to make sure that they're not in financial trouble or anything like that.
So what kind of repercussions did it have? Like financially, it must have been quite safe if it was the biggest contract to them. But what about time-wise and emotionally as well?
Yeah, time-wise, it was, we spent a lot of time talking about it. So, it was time-consuming because we were trying to sort it out. This is the problem as well, is that once the client isn't bothered about paying you because they've got what they want, they've got their print, it's very time-consuming. You try to follow them, you try to chase them, and you cannot get hold of them. And especially when it's someone who's got a made-up name, it's impossible to find them.
It must have been difficult for you as well, because your background's in web design, you're used to being in front of a computer actually doing, and all of a sudden you've got your own business and you're having to chase people like this. It must have been a new sensation for you. Like, had you ever kind of done this previously on another job? Or?
No, not at all. No, not at all. So it was, but Charlie had done it before, my other director, but we kind of, we didn't really know what to do, but in the end we just sort of took it as an experience, and not to let that happen again, because he got a really good service, and we got nothing for it. And if it was a website, for example, we'd have just turned it off, which we did end up turning his website off. He wasn't very nice about it. We actually got phone calls off him when we did turn his website off, saying, "How dare you turn my website off? Well, you haven't paid the £2,300 that you owe on your print."
So let that be a lesson to you. Pay your web designer, or your website might disappear.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing that we've learned as well. That we don't want to have to do that. We will obviously, because we're obliged to do it because clients not paying for their services. But generally, what we do now is that we ask for the full payment before the website goes live, because we don't ever want to have to turn a customer's website off, because it's just not fair. It instantly goes. It's completely sour. It goes completely sour. It's sour to start off with, but then it goes completely sour, and that's when things go really bad.
So how exactly did you overcome this? Because this happened when you were still new in the business. So you've come on leaps and bounds since then. What did you do to kind of get over that? Was it a case of just sweeping it under the rug and moving on, or did you try and actually get that money back? How did you overcome it, and how did you move forward and then still be around now in a thriving business?
We tried a little bit through getting debt collectors to try and collect it and things like that, but it wasn't going to work, because they kept coming to us and saying, "Well, that person doesn't exist. I don't really know who I'm chasing," and he had a couple of other names that he was using, so it was a nightmare. But we did just literally sweep it under the carpet. Just from an experience, and just moved on, because there's quite a lot of other things that you get wrong as a new business, and you just have to don't dwell on it too long, because it just gets to you.
Is that just one of the things in business? Sometimes you have to learn when to let go and just go, you know what, move on.
Yeah, just move on, but just make sure that you know what you're doing the next one, and don't let it come around again.
So would you say that sort of the biggest learning curve for you was the legal side? If you could kind of go back and do it all again, would you maybe speak to a legal mind beforehand? Because it's something that I've come across quite a lot, people saying if you could go back to the beginning again, they would probably speak to a lawyer or somebody in the know a little bit sooner, because quite often these...
to put things in place on how you...
Yeah, I suppose prepare for such things, really. I suppose part of their service is to kind of say there are people out there who do what this guy did to you, this is how you can serve yourself?
I don't think it'd be worth particularly going to them about that, because I think you'd go to a lawyer when it's happened anyway. But to prevent it, yeah, I mean we've talked about getting a solicitor to write a proper terms and conditions and a contract and things like that for them to sign, but we've just never needed it because because of the way that we do it now, that we only work unless it's being paid for. So we kind of don't need to get a lawyer involved. Look, obviously there's costs involved, but I don't think we particularly need to do it because at the end of the day, emails are there. If they confirm through an email that they're happy to go ahead, then they want to go ahead. We don't particularly need terms.
And it's difficult because running a web design company, it's not one of those areas where you think, well, we're going to need to have some really tight terms and conditions, because it is more relationship built, it's fair, it's a service, people come with a need, and usually it will develop over a relationship, over a bit of...
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, we don't deal with it as a contract either as well. Yeah. We don't... Obviously, we do have a couple of customers that we know really well that have a monthly sort of retainer because we do maintenance and we do lots of updates. But I think the only other time you really need a proper contract and proper terms and conditions in place is if you want to set up a monthly retainer with quite a lot of customers. But even then, we only do the work once they pay for the work, and then we do it. So, and we rack up the hours, we count the studio hours, and if we've not used it, it moves on to the next month. But it doesn't work like that. If they haven't paid for 1 month, then we say you haven't paid. If they start asking for more work, well, you haven't paid from last month, so no, we're not going to until you pay.
So there you go. A little bit of legal help needed, but not too much. Don't worry yourself too much over it.
No.
All right, well, we'll finish things up with a final question. A lot of people who will be reading the book and watching these videos are going to be young/new entrepreneurs. So as now an experienced entrepreneur of several years, what one piece of advice would you offer to that younger/new person?
I'd probably say don't be too naive. Don't get too excited when you've got lots of work in. Just to take a step back and actually look at things and think, is this the right way to do things? Because sometimes you just go with the flow and you go, I've got all this work coming in, and you're just doing it, and then you think you're going to get paid at the end of it, and your client's all jolly and happy and thank you for that, oh you're so good.
Yeah.
But then you get to the end of it and you'll count some money and you've given them what they wanted and you can't find them anymore, or maybe not to that extreme. It does happen because it happened to us, but just in small extremes that you've been trying to chase for the money, and you've got so excited, you spent all that time doing all that work, whether that's consultancy or whether it's web design or designing of any sort. You've done all that work for them, you're so excited, you've given them, they're really happy. But then when do you get paid? Because at the end of the day, as a young entrepreneur, you need to get paid. So just don't be too naive.
Don't work on the assumption that the world is absolutely perfect and it's on the roses.
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Viewer, for joining us. Hope you've taken something away from Greg's wise words. I've been amazed. I'm not used to Greg actually speaking, so it's quite new for me to see Greg actually talking like this.
I'm going to go sit behind the monitor again now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you very much, Greg. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for watching. And please check out all the links below and check out Splitpixel and everything like that. So, thank you.
Right.